Good evening. Will the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development please come to order? Before the committee can proceed with the business before it, it must elect a chairperson. Are there any nominations? Honourable Mr. Smith?
Yes, I nominate MLA Smook.
Mr. Smook has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, Mr. Smook, will you please take the chair?
Our next item of business is the election of a vice chairperson. Are there any nominations? The Honourable Mr. Smith.
Yes, I nominate MLA Mikuleski.
Emily Mikuleski has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, Mr. Mikuleski is elected vice chairperson. This meeting has been called to consider the following bill. Bill number 10, the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Control Amendment Act, Social Responsibility Fee Repealed. I would like to inform all in attendance of the provisions in our rules regarding the hour of adjournment. A standing committee meeting to consider a bill must not sit past midnight to hear public presentations or to conclude clause by clause of a bill, except by unanimous consent of the committee. Written submissions from the following persons have been received and distributed to committee members. Christopher Brighton, Black Tie Cannabis on Bill 10. Sandy Nemeth, Manitoba School Boards Association on Bill number 10. Does the committee agree to have these documents appear in the Hansard transcript of this meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed and so ordered. Prior to proceeding with public presentations, I would like to advise members of the public regarding the process for speaking in a committee. In accordance with our Rule 92(2), a time limit of 10 minutes has been allotted for presentations, with another 5 minutes allowed for questions from committee members. Questions shall not exceed 30 seconds in length, with no time limit for answers. Questions may be addressed to presenters in the following rotation. First, the minister sponsoring the bill. Second, a member of the official opposition. And third, an independent member. If a presenter is not in attendance when their name is called, they will be dropped to the bottom of the list. If the presenter is not in attendance when their name is called a second time, they will be removed from the presenter's list. The proceedings of our meetings are recorded in order to provide a verbatim transcript. Each time someone wishes to speak, whether it be an MLA or a presenter, I first have to say that person's name. This is the signal for the Hansard recorder to turn the mics on and off. On the topic of determining the order of public presentations, I will note that we do have out-of-town presenters in attendance, marked with an asterisk on the list. With these considerations in mind, in what order does the committee wish to hear presentations? Mr. Mikuleski.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest we give first chance to out-of-town presenters who are present, and then proceed numerically.
It has been brought forward that we take out-of-town presenters that are here to present first, and then the rest go in order as they are on the list. Is that agreed? Agreed and so ordered. Thank you for your patience. We will now proceed with public presentations. I will now call on Miss Candace Belmore, Cottage Country Cannabis. Candace Belmore. Is Candace here?
Okay, so she's not in the room, so we'll move to Todd Friesen.
She is not in the room, so her name will go, no.
She's not in the room, so we'll move on to Todd
Okay.
Friesen.
Mr. Todd Friesen, private citizen. Is Todd Friesen here? Mr. Friesen, would you please take the podium and make your presentation when you are ready.
All right.
Mr. Friesen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, good evening. Should I call you Mr. Speaker? Well,
Mr. Chair is fine.
And also honorable members of the Legislative Assembly. Firstly, I would like to thank you for attending this committee hearing this evening. I know you took some time out of your day for this, so please, thank you very much. I hope that we are all here and present with an open mind, open ears, and that we will want to have a constructive dialogue. I would like to state that as a country, Canada has the best cannabis in the world without question. Pound for pound, we have the best growers, and that is something that as a country, we should be proud of. I opened up Supercraft Cannabis with my brother-in-law, Mr. Sean Stewart, which I'll let him tell his story. But I'd rather speak on the industry as a whole, and I feel that my time would be best suited representing key issues with the social responsibility fee and why its repeal is necessary. To summarize, we legalized cannabis for two purposes. One was to battle the illicit market, and two was to bring a product to the general population that is no longer considered taboo, stigmatized, and is a safe, controlled substance. I'll not go into the benefits of cannabis or the comparison of any other controlled substance because that's not what we're here for. We are here to talk about the social responsibility fee. With that in mind, I would also like to state that this is not a political issue. This is a business issue. The social responsibility fee has kneecapped our ability to constructively carry out the reason that we legalized cannabis in the first place. The social responsibility fee has continued to force retailers to carry higher margins and dictate their business decisions that have negatively impacted our ability to fight the illicit market and get safe legal cannabis in the hands of consumers at a competitive price and with the proper education. I'd like to touch on a few key points that may not be as apparent when you look at the toll the SRF has had on retailers, producers, and in turn, consumers. Number one would be safety. So we have started a distribution company as well under a licensed producer, and I've had the opportunity to visit over 60 stores in Manitoba so far. What I've found is that an alarming amount of these stores only have one person working at a given time. With the carrying of cannabis and having no sight line to the outside of your building comes an inherent risk of robbery and theft. You would never walk into a liquor mart and see one person working. This is a direct correlation with the social responsibility fee. What is the first and easiest expense that you can cut as an employer? That's your employment. So there have been more than several break-ins and robberies in the cannabis industry in Winnipeg since legalization. And when you have to pay $60,000, $120,000, $180,000 every year, and you are faced with tough choices, most of the time there is no choice. This is not acceptable, and we hope that you can understand that this repeal would give us the ability to properly staff our stores so that our employees can feel safer and have someone else to help assuage and deter criminality. Number two, we are the social responsibility. The best person to talk about cannabis consumption is cannabis consumers. This is our livelihood, this is our culture, and this is our passion. Most retailers are cannabis consumers, and this almost demands a level of expertise on product knowledge. So given that retailers are experts on consumption, we would also be experts on consuming responsibly. How to store your cannabis, what you can carry on your person, etc. Everything that the LGCA, the MBLL, and Health Canada that have released in pamphlets, notices, and articles, we are already talking about. However, linking into the issue with staffing comes the issue with our ability to educate and teach, and sometimes even the most seasoned cannabis consumers, the ins and outs of new products, new information, and how to extrapolate that information and use it to ensure consumption is being used safely. Number three, the pain of SRF. So this will lead to closures and a lack of diversity. Come June 30th, you will see a windfall of stores close. Some of those closures will be due to poor business models or oversaturation, but some will also be simply because they cannot afford to operate anymore under the SRF. We've now seen this year after year, stores close their doors or sell to a larger chain. What this does is create a lack of diversity in the market. There's a trickle-down effect that not only hurts retailers in the surrounding area, but also hurts producers, because there is still a pay-to-play model style happening in these national chains. The trickle-down ends up diluting the market with bad cannabis and forces family-owned businesses out of Manitoba. I think we all support small business, and I think this is something that we want, free market or not. The success of farmers, experienced farmers, and their abilities to have a footprint in this province has been kneecapped as well. With the lack of diversity comes the death of culture, and with the death of culture comes the need for illicit market again. This is shooting ourselves in the own foot by flooding our market with product people don't want, and opens the door for the illicit market to take advantage of that. And my final point is that with the repeal to 2023 of January, this creates a competitive disadvantage for us, those who have blood, sweat, and tears in this game already. If the SRF is repealed to January 2023, knowing that there is no moratorium on new stores being put in place anytime soon, you are creating a competitive disadvantage to those of us who struggled with SRF since its inception, and or our own inception as a retailer. I believe this is unfair, and I believe it's in bad faith moving forward with the already 180 plus retailers that have been established and are reputable. You are allowing anyone who has opened since January a free pass while still robbing us of our hard-earned revenue that we have constantly had to just hand straight back to the MBLL. A cash injection is needed. It's necessary in this industry right now so that we can increase our staffing, our education, and our ability to operate. Therefore, whereas the SRF has caused a considerable safety issue with retailers choosing to only staff one person working, leading to continued theft, discomfort, and overall threat felt by employees. Whereas we as retailers are the educators of cannabis and its uses. We are the backstop of responsibility by guiding people to what they need and how to consume safely and responsibly. Whereas the likelihood of many store closures this year due to the unprecedented cost of the social responsibility fee, and the likelihood that more national chains will buy them out or open up in their spots will cause a considerable lack of diversity in a free market. And whereas the competitive disadvantage you'll be putting the over 180 retail stores currently operating, I implore this committee to not only consider, but move to repealing the SRF retroactively back to 2022, injecting $10 million back into this industry so that we can bolster our staffing, we can bolster our education, we can help secure this free market industry that you created, you supported in the first place, with knowledge that the honorable member from Spruce Woods indicated that monies collected for social responsibility never went directly to social responsibility. I would suggest that this is borderline fraudulent, and we want our money back so that we can continue to run and grow this industry as we have year over year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Friesen. We will now move on to questions. The Honorable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Friesen, for your presentation tonight and being with us. Really appreciate your insight into the industry. Obviously, I like your concern over education. I think that's a very important role that retailers play, and I certainly take your advice. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Friesen, before you can speak, I have to recognize you. So, Mr. Friesen, you may go ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration. I've been a lifelong Blue member, so I think we can probably see eye to eye on this in terms of that this will help business in Manitoba.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you, Mr. Friesen, for the presentation. It was great and much appreciated. I just wanted to ask you, we know that the government has been collecting SRF fees since 2019, 2020, 2021. And we know that the government hasn't been spending those dollars that they've been collecting. And in fact, a large percentage of those dollars have just gone back to seemingly central government revenue. And we haven't heard accountability from this government as to what they're doing with those funds or how they're being spent. So I'd just like to ask you about your reflections on how that's made you feel to see the government collecting these fees, millions of dollars from small businesses, and not seeing those be
Time has
used.
expired. Mr. Friesen?
I'm not going to make this a political issue. I'm just going to simply state the fact that this government, with this social responsibility fee, has chosen to take money out of hardworking people's pockets and put it into your general coffers, whether that's the case or not. I mean, we'd have to look back and see who spent what on what, but at the end of the day, nobody knows. Not us, and from what I heard from second reading, not you guys. So that is my feelings towards how this has gone for the last 4 years.
Mr. Lamont. Mr. Lamont.
Mr. Lamont?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask one thing, because you referred to sort of June 30th being a date when a whole bunch of businesses could fail, essentially. Can you just talk a bit about or explain why that's happening and how hopefully it can be prevented?
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Friesen, sorry.
Yes, it's all good. June 30th is the deadline for the SRF payment, for the 2022 SRF payment. And from what I understand, I know that at least 11 have not yet come up with the money. And so what can we do to help? We can repeal back to 2022. That's what we can do to help, so that we can not lose these people unnecessarily.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Friesen, and we will now move on to the next presenter. I will now call on Mrs. Shannon Sala, the Essential Cannabis Company Limited. Is Mrs. Sala here?
Mr. Sala is at home with 11-year-old Sala. So I'm just here.
Okay, we welcome you here. You may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everybody. Good evening, and thank you for your time for coming out and listening to us this evening. My name is Shannon Sala, and my husband Jeremy and I own Essential Cannabis located in Selkirk, Manitoba. We opened the first retail cannabis store in the city of Selkirk, and we opened our store during the height of the pandemic in March of 2021. The following year, in June of 2022, the 6% SRF became due. We paid it in good faith for the social responsibility costs being incurred by the province for the newly found cannabis retail industry. Later that year, in 2022, a FIPA request revealed the financial information related to the collection of the SRF and where those funds were being spent. The MBLL and LGCA, respectively, were unable to provide any meaningful accounting for the money spent on social responsibility programs. What was provided was limited in transparency and appears to be a mismatch of costs that could be loosely tied to the cannabis industry. When we became stakeholders in 2021, we agreed to pay the SRF for that year, understanding that the money collected would indeed be used for the social costs of the newly founded cannabis industry. The minister himself has recently said that those social costs did not materialize, and the SRF would no longer be collected as of January 2023. While we all welcome the repealing of the SRF for 2023, it does not go far enough. The Manitoba cannabis industry currently has approximately 170 cannabis retail stores, with 70% of those stores being independently owned and operated. We are not big publicly traded companies with access to lines of credit and payroll loans, but we are the majority of cannabis stakeholders in Manitoba. While many businesses and industries are receiving financial help as they slowly try to recover from the pandemic, we are not. There was a handful of stores in 2022 alone that we saw collapse, and yet in spite of these dire warnings, stakeholders are still being asked to pay 6% of our gross annual income for a year that was particularly hard on all Manitobans. The SRF is now due on June 30th, just 1 month away. Many retailers have already indicated their inability to pay. To put it in perspective, we are not talking about a few $1,000s. We are talking about a minimum of $40,000 per store. Do you know what that money could do for small retailers like myself? It can mean the difference between staying open or closing my doors and other doors in some cases. As small business owners are currently employing approximately 63% of the labor market, with minimum wage going up as well as WCB and payroll taxes, we are facing many challenges. Existing retailers like myself will continue to struggle with this and previous year's SRF debts, while any new retailer in 2023 will never have to pay their share of the social responsibility for a cannabis industry they will now benefit from. We are in favor of the SRF being repealed. However, we ask that it be amended and repealed to January of 2022. This will alleviate the financial burden placed on existing retailers and the unfair capital advantage it will create for the new ones. By amending it to January 2022, it will provide much needed monetary relief for us stakeholders and better position us all for a full recovery post-pandemic. Thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions.
We thank you for your presentation, Mrs. Sala. We will now move on to questions. The Honourable Minister Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Sala, for joining us tonight and coming in from Selkirk. Again, appreciate your taking the bold move to open a business during the pandemic. Certainly applaud you for that. Again, I appreciate your insight into the industry. Thanks again for your insight.
Mrs. Sala, do you have a response or anything? No?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Sala.
Good to meet another Sala.
Yes.
Welcome here. Thanks for coming from Selkirk. I want to say how much we appreciated your presentation, and also just ask, in terms of the impacts of the SRF for you and your family and your store, what has that meant for you guys since you've opened? What are those impacts, those real sort of day-to-day impacts for you guys as business owners?
Mrs. Sala.
Like Mr. Friesen had spoke about, we're facing so many challenges, much like every other Manitoban right now with small businesses. We're trying to crawl out of a pandemic. We see other industries getting relief, financial relief, but we're just ignored, we're just expected to just carry on. And so instead of getting any sort of relief, this seems like the perfect time to actually just amend it and allow us to keep our own money. Instead of us having to come with our hands out saying we need help in this industry, if the SRF was repealed, it's really going to make a huge difference for retailers like myself, because then we can reinvest the money back into our business. We can hire more employees. And to what he was speaking about, that's actually a very good point that I never really thought about until now, is the fact with the education, the social responsibility. I do more social responsibility while I'm working in my own store than I've ever seen from the LGCA or MBLL. I certainly don't mean any disrespect. It's just a fact. I'm the one there. We are the front lines doing the social responsibility, yet we still have to pay. It's just not really making any sense. And then when we can't even determine where the money was spent, it leaves, it's a bitter pill to swallow, especially with it just around the corner now, where I have to come up with all this money and hand it over when it could have, and in some cases it will make the difference for some retailers having to close their doors, and that's sad.
Mr. Lamont.
Thank you, and thank you so much. The one thing can you just expand a little bit when you're talking about provide the education you're providing in the store on social responsibility? And I mean, I guess where do you get the information for it, or do you end up, or is it something you just have to come up with yourself?
Mrs. Sala?
It's just something that people in this industry have just come to know. I mean, there's so many things involved. From the minute the person walks in your store, it's like you're on them. You're like, how old are you? Are you 19? You're checking their IDs. You're going through all of that. Then you're asking the questions, is this for you? Is this for somebody else? And then the customer always tells you what it is. And we have a lot of customers who are from the illicit market. They are from the illicit market. So then when we inform them that all cannabis that they're going to be purchasing from a dispensary has gone through Health Canada. It's perfectly safe. You're not going to have any problems that you get from buying off somebody on the street. And then the eyes open and, oh, this is just wonderful and this is great. And then, then consumption limits. There's always consumption limits, like, with the gummies, the edibles, which are a great big thing right now. So we're always just educating them, is this your first time with edibles? Okay, then you know what? Start slow, and see how you react to it. I don't know anybody in any store who pushes cannabis. The customer tells us what they want, and we guide them, and they make the best decision possible. So it's us. You're welcome.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you for your presentation, Mrs. Sala, and we will now move on to the next presenter. I will now call on Mr. Sean Stewart, 5A's Supercraft Cannabis. Mr. Stewart, when you're ready, you may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about how the social responsibility fee has impacted not only our business, but also our family. About 2.5 years ago, during the pandemic, my family, my wife and our 5-year-old son decided to move from downtown Toronto to Steinbach, Manitoba, in search of more space, a bit more freedom, and the opportunity within the cannabis industry. In terms of the cannabis industry, I would be considered a legal cannabis veteran. I've worked in legal cannabis before legalization in October 17th, 2018. I also want the record to show I've been a daily smoker for almost 30 years. And as long as I can remember, I've advocated against the lazy stoner stereotype. I'm happily a husband, a father. I've had successful careers and businesses. And for the past 6 years, I've worked tirelessly to work to improve the legal cannabis industry in Canada. So furthermore, we used $400,000 from the sale of our house to start our business. 9 months of preparation, LGCA and MBLL licensing, municipal fire police authorizations and constructions. We opened our doors June 24th, 2021. We also decided to pay our employees before we started paying ourselves as business owners, and we only started doing that about 5 months after we actually opened our doors. We would consider our first 6 months to be successful. We were growing and strengthening our position within the community as the spot to go to. Our first SRF bill was $57,000, and that was only for that first 6 months. After determining our business financials for that fiscal year, that's $57,000 was $50,000 out of our profits and actually put us $7K into the hole. Our second full year was also very successful, great year-over-year growth, and by now we're really establishing ourselves within our surrounding community. After determining our finances for that fiscal year, our slim net profit margin of roughly 12 to 13% will be cut in half by the SRF. This year, that's $142,000. That would be taken out of my small business and my family's future assets, while again, not really being used what it was intended to be used for. I first really questioned the SRF in April of 2022 with an email to the MBLL, and within the following months and year, a wave of other retailers had recognized the same issue. What is our hard-earned money being used for? Is it really being used for social responsibility? Revenues from the SRF, and this is quoted from the reasoning behind why we pay this. Revenues from the SRF will be used to fund the many social costs associated with the legalization of cannabis, including addictions treatment and public education campaigns. My question is, why has it taken the government 6 years to reevaluate this? I think on many levels, they have been scientifically disproven. The minister is on record saying the funds derived from the SRF do not go directly to social costs associated with cannabis. And from an independent small business owner, having my hard-earned money being taxed and used for purposes outside of what it's meant for is just simply unacceptable. I think we need, number one, to change this in order to secure the future of this industry in Manitoba. Personally, I think this repeal, I agree with everyone else that's been up here so far, is kind of a little too late. The SRF fee has already and substantially impacted retailers, causing many to minimize operations or in some cases close their doors. Here's my suggestion. As has been said previously, repeal the SRF back to January 1st, 2022. This will create a moral win and economic boost to the cannabis industry in Manitoba of approximately $10 to $12 million, and will save another $10 to $12 million from being unjustifiably taken from businesses like mine. It will help with job creation, allowing stores to hire more qualified staff and reduce staff turnover. It will stimulate industry expansion into new cannabis businesses in Manitoba, like our new distribution business. It may just also help existing business owners pay off debt. My name is Sean Stewart. I'm a daily cannabis smoker, an independent cannabis retail owner, founder of a licensed cannabis distribution company. The SRF is killing our entire industry, and it's time for those responsible for writing these rules to make it right. Thank you.
We thank you for your presentation, Mr. Stewart. We will now move on to questions. The Honourable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Stewart, for joining us tonight. Welcome to Manitoba. I appreciate hearing your journey, and hope your business continues to thrive and hopefully grow. And hopefully, with the removal of the SRF, we can be more competitive with that illicit market out there.
Mr. Stewart, did you have a response?
Thank you.
Mr. Sala?
Thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation, Sean. It was great. And again, welcome to Manitoba. It's wonderful that you decided to come here with your family to set up a business and help contribute to growth here in this province. I'd just like to ask, have you seen in your time in the cannabis industry any evidence of social responsibility fees being spent by government to increase social responsibility in Manitoba? Or do you have any examples of that?
Mr. Stewart?
Yes, I do. I think when we first opened in the summer of 2021, there were pamphlets that were handed out by the LGCA for us to hand out to each client or each customer. I do also remember seeing billboards throughout the city of Winnipeg. I think that's one part. The other part is obviously, you know, the full amount that has been taken for SRF since its inception is a lot more than pamphlets and billboards.
Mr. Lamont?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And no, like I also congratulate you on fighting the stigmatization that surrounds cannabis. I think it's very important that you've said that and made that stand. I just wanted to ask, if you were, I mean, looking at the social responsibility fee, what sort of things would you be looking at in reinvesting? If you know, if that money were available to you, what would you be doing it with it for your business?
Mr. Stewart?
Sorry. I think, you know, we've always eyed expansion. I think that's one part of it. Personally, for me, I mean, we invested $400,000 and we haven't recouped any of that yet. So, you know, part of that would be welcomed. But mostly, I mean, we've not only built a store, but we are building a new business as well. So pretty much all the money I've made in cannabis has gone back into building something else. Yeah, so it would more than likely just be built into something else.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Stewart, and we will move on to the next presenter. I will now call Mr. Tyler Miller. Tyler Miller from the Vault Cannabis Limited. You may proceed with your presentation as soon as you are ready.
Good day. I didn't bring a presentation. I'm an organic grain farmer up at in the Ashton area. I'm just kind of gonna wing it, so I do apologize, guys. But most of my colleagues, they've touched on everything. For us, probably the SFR fee affected us most in expansion. Like we're up in Arborg, St. Rose, Ashern, and we're opening 3 more. Our 4th one's in Lundar, but we've really scaled that back a lot. And our plan was to, I guess, attack those markets that there's still lots of illicit sales going on. So that definitely slowed us to eat up that market, and this SFR fee is kind of helping the illicit market still. Another one that, again, Todd touched on is staff. We've cut staff a lot. We haven't hired a lot. That makes it, I guess, a huge security risk. What else? Yeah, basically, the expansion for us, it hurt us a lot. Paying fair wages, hiring people, hiring for safety. I haven't seen nothing up there for social responsibility fees. Like they give us a pamphlet to put in the bag, and it's all from bud tenders and managers and owners. If I had a chance to get that SFR fee back, I'd love to dump it into our business and expand more and expand faster and eat that black market. Like I don't see anything from the government side, like attacking internet sales. Like you can get like almost 4 ounces of cannabis for about $120 on the internet right now. And that pulverizes us up there, and people just mail it. Canada Post doesn't care. You go to the post office, pick up 4 ounces. What I'd like to do with our SFR fee, like I'd like to dump it back in our business, but in our small town, Chuck Anderson, old NHLers from there, and our arena's closed. It costs about $100,000 to reopen that arena, and that's still a social responsibility issue. Like that'll bring young kids in, keep them away from underage drug consuming, alcohol consuming. If I could get that SFR fee back, we would dump that into that community center and reopen that arena. As well, like we're getting by okay, but a 6-figure fee, like it's huge. And we're all small business people. Like there's a couple of teachers that are partners with us. There's a pharmacist, so it's really tough to pay that. And again, it sucks that we don't get to see where it goes. Like I want to thank I guess it would be the PCs that are doing an $11 million hospital investment up in Ashern. I really thank them for that, but I don't think there's probably a journal entry showing an SFR fee going to that hospital. And again, I don't think there'd be a journal entry going from the SFR fee to go to the addictions from it. So up there, we see nothing for social responsibility. And it'd be better if it was in our hands. I don't want it to stick around, but if it happens to, it would be better for it to be in our hands to decide what we want to do with that community money. Like all that money is coming from that community, and none of it's staying up there. It's all coming down here and just getting generally spent. Yeah, so that's my presentation off the top of my head, guys.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Miller. The Honorable Mr. Cullen.
Thanks, Mr. Miller, for joining us from Arborg tonight. Appreciate you coming in. Looks like you're probably a pretty good source for the Interlight there, so applaud your business serving the communities in the Interlight. Thanks for that.
Mr. Miller, did you have a response for
Yeah,
the
no, thank you guys for attending. I hope we can, I would like to get this repealed back to, 2022 and get all our money again, even if we have the option to put it back into our community and not just go get blown, blown away in inflation and interest that the province has to serve, so.
Mr. Sala.
I just want to thank you for the presentation. I don't know if you can hear me right now over the rain, but I'll talk louder. Thank you so much for your presentation. Appreciated your words and also the work you've done in our rural communities to grow small business. Just quickly, in terms of the impact of the SRF on your ability to expand and invest, could you just elaborate on that a bit in terms of the way that the SRF has slowed your ability to invest in growing your business in those communities?
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, for us, it's more servicing the cost to open those places. Like we really cut down our timeline, or I guess really expanded it, sorry. One store, we took about 8 months just because we're planning to have this SFR fee. We put it away every month so we don't kind of get stung, but it's the capital we weren't able to put in to hire the correct fast people. I pretty much do almost everything myself, not renovations, but like we hired no one just to save that money. But again, it extended it super long. And it just allows that black market and that gray market and the internet market to thrive more. And you guys aren't getting any taxes or revenue from it. I'd like to see more stomping down on the black market and the internet market. I don't understand how the government can't, stop internet sales of cannabis, it would be a huge amount of money back for you guys in terms of, I guess not GST, but other taxes you guys get, I guess, through MBLL, 75 cents or the 9% they charge to producers. So, but again, just the slowness of expanding.
Mr. Lamont.
Thank you. Can you just talk a bit about the black market sales and what a challenge it is? Because I'm very interested in the idea of cracking down on it, if possible. If it's not whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I guess it's for me up there, I see, like, I know we stomped out the local weed dealers in our town. Like, it's a pretty small town and everyone knows who everyone is. So that was really good. And I know in St. Rose, we're starting to hit it up pretty good. In Arborg too, there's a couple weed dealers there and they start to come get cannabis from us, so at least it's safe, it's tested, like all the testing happens a lot in Winnipeg at Biosurgeon Pharma. I'm hoping, people keep it local. But it's that internet market where you can get really low cost weed, no taxes, and it's shipped to your PO box in the small towns. Again, they smash us in cost. Like a cheap ounce for us would probably be like, we can retail it maybe for $85, $80, and you can get like ounces online for like $25, $30. So it's quite significant cheaper. Like I don't know the stats on how many people still get cannabis on the internet in the city, but up in the rural areas, it's a huge impact still.
We
No. Any further questions?
Any further questions? Mr. Lamont.
Do you know where is there they're located in Canada? Are some of these internet dispensaries, let's call them, are they in Manitoba, or they can be anywhere? Anywhere in Canada, obviously.
Mr. Miller.
They're all across Canada. It's mostly like what I know. It's a lot of BC companies do it. It's a lot of it's invite. Like you have to get invited to shop with them, and then usually those sites they'll have like you can get like acid strips. You can get DMT pens. You can get almost anything on those sites. There is Winnipeg sites that are running. I know a couple of years ago, maybe Dr. Kush is one that got shut down here. So they're still running strong. Like I know people that buy gray market, black market weed all the time. It's kind of amazing. They can stomp out a lot of things on the internet, but they can't stomp out like weed dealers on the internet. Like I can find them and register for them and get weed right away. Like it's very perplexing.
We thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Miller, and we will now move on to the next presenter. I will now call on Tyrone Abbas. Tyrone Abbas. We will move Mr.
We will move on now to Mr. Ryan Peterson.
We will now move on to Mr. Ryan Peterson. Is Mr. Ryan Peterson here? You may proceed with your presentation when you are ready.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm here today to urge you to repeal the SRF for cannabis retailers. While I understand the intentions behind the fee, the evidence suggests that it is an unjust and ineffective measure that places an undue burden on small businesses, while failing to address the reasons for its implementation. It's important to recognize that the SRF is a significant financial burden on small cannabis retailers. While it may be referred to as a fee, in truth, it is a tax hidden from the consumer that adds to the cost already borne by small businesses in the legal cannabis industry. It is also important to note that the Manitoba government already collects a significant amount of revenue from cannabis retailers. The government collects 9% from wholesales plus 75 cents per gram, which is already a substantial amount of money. This, combined with other taxes and regulatory costs, can be difficult for small businesses to absorb and may ultimately force them to close their doors. The government's explanation for the fee was that the revenues generated by the SRF will help to fund social costs of public education, safety, health, and addictions associated with the legalization of cannabis. First, on public education. The government has done little as far as public education. Besides a few ad campaigns warning against the mixing of cannabis with alcohol and to keep cannabis edibles away from children, the government has not even done the basic work of educating the public how to identify legal products from black market ones. Frequently, customers come into our store with an empty package to see if we sell the product, only to be surprised to find out the product they had purchased was from the black market. Right now, you can go to many corner stores and buy black market cannabis under the counter, cheaper and with no age verification. I came across an ad on Facebook for a Winnipeg cannabis delivery service that looked completely legitimate. It turned out to be a black market site that sells all types of cannabis products, including edibles, that are hard to discern from regular retail candy delivered to your door. On health and safety, it's important to mention that there are other legal products that have far more documented negative impact on our society that are not subject to this fee. The argument that cannabis is more harmful than other legal substances such as alcohol is not supported by evidence. In fact, the harmful effects of alcohol misuse on Canadian society are well documented. Alcohol was a factor in 40% of homicides and 30% of all reported sexual assaults in Canada. Alcohol misuse costs the Canadian economy $14.6 billion annually, including healthcare expenses, lost productivity, and criminal justice system costs. In 2018, there were 5,869 alcohol-related hospitalizations in Canada. On the other hand, cannabis is shown to have far fewer negative impacts on society. Research has shown that cannabis use is not associated with violent behavior, and it has even been shown to reduce alcohol consumption, a far more harmful substance that is not subject to the SRF. It's obvious that eliminating the black market would be the next target for the SRF funds, yet the illegal market is still thriving in Manitoba. The current regulatory framework for legal cannabis retailers simply cannot compete with the low prices and lack of oversight that the black market offers. The incident of black market cannabis being given out to children during Halloween is just one example of the dangers of an unregulated market. You may not be aware that these cannabis edibles were illegal and very easily mistaken as retail candy. These same black market products are easily obtained on websites that openly sell and deliver black market cannabis in Winnipeg. This is clear evidence that the problem is widespread and requires a more comprehensive solution. I'm frustrated that over $20 million has been collected from cannabis retailers since the inception of the SRF, and the Manitoba government cannot account for how the money has been spent. That is fiscally irresponsible and hypocritical when retailers are required to report for every cannabis product sold and purchased in their store to MBLL and LGCA on a monthly basis. These monthly audits make us accountable. Why is it that the Manitoba government is not accountable with their spending when it comes to the SRF? We also face twice monthly inspections and have been written up for minor things like not adjusting the timestamp on our security system for daylight savings time. Lastly, it's crucial that the government takes steps to support small businesses and ensure that they are not unfairly penalized for participating in a legal and regulated market. While the legal cannabis industry is still in its early stages, the government must recognize the challenges faced by small businesses and work to mitigate them. In conclusion, I strongly urge you to add an amendment to the bill to repeal the SRF to January 1st, 2022. The SRF payment for 2022 is due in June, and if it's collected, I believe you will see more of us forced to close. The government has failed to provide the promised programs, and it's unfair to continue to collect these fees from us. Repealing the SRF would not only alleviate some of the financial burden on struggling cannabis retailers, but a good first step to creating fairness and parity between cannabis and liquor retailers. Thank you.
We thank you for your presentation, Mr. Peterson. We will now move on to questions. The Honorable Mr. Cullen.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, coming from Beausejour. I appreciate you servicing that market out there as well. A good reminder of the pitfalls of the illicit market out there too. So thanks for reminding us of that.
Mr. Peterson, did you have any response to that, or?
Thank you.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really, really great throughout. We know that government has been collecting, as you said, around $20 million over the last several years and hasn't spent the majority of those dollars. That's a real concern. My question to you is, if we were to have seen those dollars be spent, how do you feel that we could have been spending those dollars to improve social responsibility in Manitoba or to make Manitobans safer? And I ask you because you alluded to a number of really good examples of where risks exist. And so I'm hoping you could elaborate on how those dollars may have been spent to make Manitobans safer in their consumption of cannabis and Manitobans overall.
Mr. Peterson.
Well, a cheap way would be to have a public awareness campaign that just shows people what a legal cannabis package looks like versus an illegal one. Because there's a ton of products out there that look really slick, they're professionally produced, but are illegal. And the legal packages are very clearly have an excise stamp on them and a bunch of other identifying marks that the public is just not aware of. They continually come into the store and ask for edibles that have 100 milligrams of THC in them and don't understand why we don't have them. That and just a simple, I mean, I could easily find tons of illegal cannabis being sold currently without being a detective or a police officer, and just cracking down on the basic, obvious, blatant black market would be easily done, and it wouldn't take nearly the money that's been collected from us.
Mr. Lamont.
Thank you so much. It was really, really interesting. And I wanted to ask, are there other jurisdictions, so if you're talking about a crackdown, or if there are ways, are there other jurisdictions, whether it's in Canada or elsewhere, that have done a better job or that are a model to follow in terms of cleaning up the black market, or doing a better job that we could maybe adopt here in Manitoba?
Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, I think that we don't need to look elsewhere. We just need to look at other products. Look at tobacco. Look at alcohol. You don't see black market alcohol out there, and that's for a reason. I'm sure it was back in the 20s or whatever, after Prohibition or whenever that happened. I'm sure there was black market booze out there. There certainly isn't anymore, you know. And tobacco as well. You often see task forces taking down illegal tobacco. So I'd just say, look within the system that we already have.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Peterson, and we will now move on to the next presenter. Our next presenter is Ms. Carrie Mitchell, Farmer Jane Cannabis Company. Carrie, you may proceed with your presentation as soon as you are ready.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm Carrie Michael, president of Farmer Jane Cannabis Co. I'm pleased to be here tonight to support Bill 10, and I thank you to the committee and parties for their support in businesses in Manitoba and moving this forward. A bit about us. Farmer Jane currently operates 14 stores across the prairies. We're proud to have 5 of these stores located in the heart of Canada, Winnipeg. In Manitoba alone, we employ a total of 6 salaried employees and an additional 33 hourly. We're proud to pay our teams above minimum wage and above industry average wages. We did open 5 stores here initially because we understand the prairies. However, the last few years has been challenging operating under the SRF. I would like to state, though, we do give back to our communities. We are a very socially responsible industry, and as you can see from the previous presenters, they're focused on giving back and making sure that we're creating a safe and healthy industry. In 2022, Farmer Jane donated over $25,000 to a variety of community organizations in our 3 cities. For example, over the last 2 years, we've been able to donate over 70,000 meals to food banks in our 3 cities. We really care about communities, and we take seriously our responsibility to ensure the cannabis industry is developed in a positive and healthy manner. It's a very young industry, and while we have got some of the regulation in Canada right, this one doesn't make sense. We do commend the proactiveness of this bill. We do believe Bill 10 is crucial in creating a healthy cannabis industry to compete against the illicit market, as others have noted. Bill 10 only makes sense because, if passed, it will further support the 3 goals of the Federal Cannabis Act. The goals are protect youth from accessing cannabis, ensure products are safe, not from the illicit market, and to deter criminal activity. Again, we support Bill 10, and these changes give us confidence in the strong business community and healthy industry in Manitoba. Additional taxes like the SRF really do drive purchasing back to the illicit market, and removing the 6% tax on retailers will allow us to be competitive and create a sustainable business in the province. It even creates a more open industry that makes us think about operating more businesses within the province. Bill 10 is a positive change, and with smart regulations and processes, we can operate sustainable businesses that will create direct and indirect economic impact for Manitobans. Once again, I just want to say we support Bill 10, and thank you for your proactiveness and collaboration with our industry.
We thank you for your presentation, Ms. Mitchell. We will now move on to questions. The Honorable Mr. Cullen.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for your presentation tonight. Thanks for your business here in Manitoba, and hopefully it continues to be successful in the future. Thank you.
Ms. Mitchell, did you have a response?
Just thank you, and thanks to these other entrepreneurs here that are trying to operate in a new young industry for being here today to speak.
Ms. Naylor?
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell, for your presentation, and to say that thank you for giving us that example of, as an industry, taking your own, doing your own social responsibility in terms of community, like contributing in the community. Without the SRF, do you have a vision of what other types of social responsibility you might invest in as a business?
Ms. Mitchell?
Absolutely. So we currently do give back to communities. I think the biggest thing with removing the social responsibility fee is it really makes Manitoba a place that looks like it's open for business. You know, we operate in Saskatchewan, which is a unique situation in itself, and it's allowed us to be proactive to give back to communities. And I think I would just say we wouldn't stop giving back to community and probably look at other initiatives that will give back to Manitoba and Saskatchewan.
Mr. Lamont?
Can you just talk a little bit about is there anything that was being done in Saskatchewan that's particularly good that maybe we could use as a model here, or if there are different policies that are working for you there that might be, even if it's not directly related to the SRF, what your experience as a business running stores in Saskatchewan versus Manitoba?
Ms. Mitchell?
Well, obviously the 6% fee that's being taxed on us is not being taxed on us in Saskatchewan, which makes more opportunity for us to operate in that province. They're unique provinces. Each province operates differently. Some of our managing partners operate in BC and Alberta too, and they all have their own unique challenges. I wouldn't say Saskatchewan is the best model, but it does have different opportunities as far as delivery and not having a middleman to go through purchasing. But I think that's all I would say. The only other thing I've seen them do proactively as far as a social responsibility is, ourselves, we've worked with Saskatoon Police and Saskatchewan Government Insurance to, work on impaired driving initiatives and get that out into the media just to make sure there is some awareness out there in the province.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Miller, and we will now move on to our next presenter, Mrs. Sharon Clark, private citizen. Mrs. Clark, you may proceed with your presentation when you are ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present to committee tonight. We really appreciate it. I'm not a private citizen. I'm actually here representing Big Bud's Cannabis Sales, and a locally owned Indigenous cannabis store. Manitoba's independent cannabis retailers are calling upon the government of Manitoba to repeal the social responsibility fee back to January 1, 2022. As the legal non-medical cannabis market has evolved significantly over the last 2 years, creating a distinct challenge faced by independent retailers. A press release issued by the government of Manitoba dated November 22, 2019 stated, Manitoba will continue to monitor the non-medical cannabis market and can adjust the social responsibility fee as the market evolves and social costs are identified. However, we feel that the policy surrounding the social responsibility fee has not evolved fast enough to keep up with the changing economic landscape in the cannabis retail sector. When the social responsibility fee was announced, retail licenses were limited to a small group of retailers, each having a large segment of the market share, which afforded them the ability to pay the social responsibility fee without financial harm. Then in May 2020, the government of Manitoba opened licensing to all prospective retailers, including independents, and later removed the 15% cap on the maximum number of licenses that any single licensee could maintain within the province of Manitoba. The message this sent to independent retailers is that the government was aligning themselves behind and supporting the larger cannabis retailers. Today, the number of cannabis retail licenses in the province of Manitoba has grown from a handful of licenses in 2019 to over 170 currently. The significant increase in cannabis retail licenses has meant that the market share for any individual licensee has significantly decreased, resulting in declining gross profit margins and reduced operating budgets. Discount retailers have also entered the market, creating an extremely competitive pricing environment. And let's not forget, we are currently facing an economic recession, which is further limiting individuals' discretionary income and reducing profits even further. Startup small businesses often do not make a profit in the first 2 years of business, making the social responsibility fee a significant barrier for small businesses to succeed in the cannabis industry. Furthermore, cannabis retail is the only industry subject to such a fee. The number of Manitobans employed in the retail cannabis industry has grown alongside the number of active cannabis retail licenses issued in the province. According to Statistics Canada in 2022, small businesses currently employ 63.8% of the total Canadian labour force, creating tax revenue and other economic benefits. While large businesses and publicly traded corporations may be able to sustain multi-year losses, small, locally owned businesses cannot. According to Statistics Canada analysis on small business, first quarter of 2022, small businesses are more likely to have financial constraints than their larger counterparts and have less ability to take on more debt. Compounding that further is the hard reality that banks don't lend to cannabis retailers. It is extremely difficult to open a store to begin with. Manitoba's independent cannabis retailers are predominantly family-owned and operated. Some owners have invested their life savings, some borrowed money from friends and family, some mortgaged their homes in order to operate their own small business in Manitoba. And after jumping through numerous hurdles to own their own small business in Manitoba, the government stacked the deck against them. First, they oversaturated the market. And on top of that, they allowed the corner stores to sell cannabis and not adhere to most of the costly expenditures that the age-restricted stores had to spend in order to open a store. Then they allowed discount retailers by not implementing a price floor. And the largest barrier of all, they implemented a social responsibility fee, which is 6% on the gross annual sales. Current cannabis retail margins are 5 to 10%. This program at minimum cuts profits in half for most retailers and at worst forces financially overburdened families to acquire more debt and pay the government imposed tax. This creates undue financial hardship and extreme stress for the retailer, and the negative trickle-down effect it can have on families can be devastating. With that in mind, I reached out to Julie Brokaw, the MBLL program manager in the Commercials, Partners and Agreements for Cannabis Operations. My email is as follows. Good morning, Julie. After speaking with several retailers, there are a number of independently owned cannabis stores that will be unable to pay the SRF on June 30th. What are next steps when this takes place? The unknown consequences are a huge concern, as no one wants to lose their livelihood and potentially their homes. Julie's a lovely person and responded. I have no ill will to what she wrote back to me because she's just following her directive given by the government. The pertinent paragraph is as follows. In the event that a cannabis retailer neglects to pay their social responsibility fee on or before June 30th, the MBLL will be required to take action as per the terms of your MBLL cannabis store retailer agreement, and if necessary, engage the services of a collection agency to ensure that the MBLL meets its obligation of collecting and returning this fee to the province. That is not only disheartening, but it's also a huge insult to an industry predominantly run by family-owned and operated businesses. The SRF fee is a complete contradiction to the progressive conservative election promises made in 2021. As per CBC News, August 17th, 2021, the Conservative Party of Canada today released its full 160-page election platform, an ambitious agenda that promises billions of dollars in new spending to prop up an economy ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic. Unlike past Conservative platforms, this one embraces a robust role for government in the economy through large cash injections to help businesses weather the pandemic crisis over the next 2 years. But the centerpiece of this plan is a promise to create 1 million jobs. To accomplish that goal, the party is offering even more money than the Liberal government has budgeted for the country's pandemic-struck employers, part of a push to recover all jobs lost over the last 18 months. Since the last vote in 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed unemployment rates to levels not seen since the 2008-2009 financial crisis. And yet, the provincial government has imposed an unrealistic and in some cases insurmountable tax on cannabis retailers, forcing business closures and placing small business owners in jeopardy of becoming homeless. And the response we receive is we will send a collection agency if the social responsibility fee is not paid. Make no mistake, the cannabis retailers are well aware of what political party implemented the social responsibility fee and are cognizant of the fact that to date there has been no financial assistance or relief for cannabis retailers, and it looks like more retailers will face bankruptcy because of it. Repealing the social responsibility fee back to January 1st, 2022 is one way to extend an olive branch to the cannabis retailers and help small independent businesses succeed in their chosen industry. Thank you.
We thank you for your presentation. Mrs. Clark, we will now move on to questions. The Honourable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Clark, for your presentation. Thank you for sharing that correspondence as well. Appreciate it.
Mrs. Clark.
Thank you.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Sharon, for the really great presentation. Very insightful. I think one thing I just want to say here is that we've got a government that likes to present itself as being a supporter of small business, but all I've heard tonight is the ways in which they've made life harder for small businesses in Manitoba. We know, of course, we're here to talk about the SRF and the challenges that's created. You also alluded to the introduction of corner stores, and there's some differences in how they're regulated, but also you touched a lot on overexpansion. Can you just elaborate a bit on the impacts of overexpansion and how you feel that's likely to impact existing cannabis retailers in Manitoba?
Mrs. Clark.
The overexpansion has resulted in an extremely competitive pricing environment, driving prices down, which is reducing profit margins. There is, as you know, more cannabis stores than Tim Hortons in Winnipeg. And according to the government, and I didn't bring that email, but I received an email from one of the minister's offices stating that they will not stop opening cannabis stores. They're going to continue to open cannabis stores, and it's driving small independent retailers out of businesses, and it's impacting families dramatically.
Mr. Lamont.
Thank you so much. It was really, really fascinating. I had two questions. One, if you could just talk, I did not realize that banks would not finance cannabis dispensaries. So if you could just tell me a bit about that. And if I can ask a quick second question, do you see like a moratorium? Would it be useful to say, look, we're not gonna open any new stores? Would that also be helpful?
Mrs. Clark.
Thank you for your questions. No, banks will not lend to anyone in the cannabis industry, so people have been creative in order to secure funding for their stores. And the people who are facing store closure are facing it because they can't go to a bank to borrow money to pay the government imposed tax. Let's call it what it is, it's a tax. They can't go to a bank to pay the government imposed tax. So they either have to come up with it by friends, family, whatever means necessary, sell something, sell their home, or they go bankrupt. And if they go bankrupt, the government is going to send creditors to their door. They're going to send a collection agency and put a mark on their financial records. And that's not fair. It's not acceptable on any level, to be honest. And what was your second question? No, I've forgotten. I'm sorry.
Mr. Lamont?
Just a very quick
To
follow-up.
briefly,
No, if you can just add, why is it because of fear of sort of American, why is it that banks won't do business?
Mrs. Clark.
Because cannabis is considered a high-risk market. And with the major banks affiliation and having operating banks stateside, all of the U.S. is not legalized yet. So they will not play ball at all. Thank you.
Ms. Naylor.
Thank you. Nice to see you again, Sharon. I wanted to ask, you've got a minute left, if you would like to elaborate what you told me and help me understand about the differences in licensing with the new licensing that came in for smaller kind of stores, the different rules around how things are stored, how visible products are. Can you just share with us the impact of that and tell us a bit about it in 43 seconds?
Mrs. Clark.
When age-restricted stores were open, we had to build a vault. We had to put window coverings. We had to put other things in place so that no one could see in, so that the cannabis was secure and that we could operate. Oh, and the camera systems as well. That was a big expense. Now the corner stores are opening. They have no window coverings. There are people under the age of 19 in the corner stores. I took my 17-year-old grandson into a corner store. A gentleman purchased cannabis in front of him. They had a conversation about cannabis.
Unfortunately, Mrs. Clark, your time has expired. We thank you very much for your presentation. And before we move on to the next presenter, I'd like to remind the people in attendance here tonight, there is no participation in the form of applauding or verbal talking, or those are the things that are not allowed in any committee here. So I just appreciate your cooperation. Thank you. I will now call on Candace Belmore, Cottage Country Cannabis. Is Candace here?
No, she's not here.
Candace is not here.
We'll drop her name to the bottom.
We will drop her name to the bottom of the list. Ms. Anik Beauchesne, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please correct me, from Babette's Cannabis Dispensary. Anik, you may proceed with your presentation when you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Anik Beauchesne. I'm speaking on behalf of Babette's Cannabis, located in the Westwood neighborhood of Winnipeg. We are family owned and family run. Our store is run by a team of 4, and our livelihoods depend on this store's survival. Our goal in opening this store was to have a sustainable small business. Our target market is our neighborhood and our immediate community. In 2020, we signed a contract with the MBLL in which we agreed to pay 6% of our annual gross sales, known as the SRF. At the time, there were only 15 active retailers in Manitoba. And we believed that the government would cap the number of licenses granted. We were confident that our business had a good chance of succeeding, even with the extra 6%. At this point, there are well over 150 retailers in Manitoba, and the cannabis retail climate is in serious trouble. For Babette's, 6% is the difference between reinvesting in our business and growing at a sustainable level versus treading water. We've been putting aside our sales to save up for the SRF payment, and that's money that would directly go back into our store, just ordering product. As was mentioned before, we can't get a loan. So why does it matter if we go under when competing chains with deep pockets are able to take a loss for a sustained amount of time? Well, let me tell you how our store is different. A large part of our client base are senior citizens. Contrary to what you may have heard, cannabis users are extremely diverse. And the reasons for consuming cannabis are varied and nuanced, and it goes far beyond just getting high. We go through the ups and downs of life with our customers. We have celebrated a longtime client going into remission for cancer. And we were there providing a small amount of comfort for one of our longtime clients as he reached the end of his battle. We know that our regulars love us as much as we love them. We are wanted and needed in the community, delivering a level of service and education that can only be done by a small business. We deserve a space in this industry. Please help us so we can continue doing what we love and selling cannabis with the respect that it requires. Thank you.
We thank you for your presentation, and we will now move on to questions. The Honourable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Beauchesne, for your submission tonight. Appreciate your insight into the industry. Thank you.
Ms. Beauchesne, did you have a response to that?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you, Ms. Beauchesne, for the presentation, and thanks for painting a really impacting picture of the community that you guys are building there and the important supports you're providing to the community around you. It really was wonderful to hear about. We've heard now a couple presenters allude to concerns about oversaturation. You alluded to coming into the market, making those investments when there was a certain number of licenses, and now those have exploded. Can you just offer your overall sense of the state of cannabis retail in Manitoba and where you see things going given the direction that our current government is taking?
Ms. Beauchesne.
Well, I can only speak from the perspective of a small business, but I'm aware that nobody's happy at all levels. Everybody is treading water. The larger chains, they're still losing. They just have the capacity to lose for longer. And I think that that's not right, considering that there's clearly very high demand for this product.
Mr. Lamont.
I just wanted to say thank you very much. It was actually, it was very touching. You're providing a service to the community, so thank you very much for doing that.
Ms. Beauchesne.
Thank you very much. We really connect with our community on a very deep level. Cannabis clearly is a very sensitive product. It touches on a lot of areas of people's life, and we're just here to support and provide that responsible education.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we'd like to thank you very much for your presentation, and we will now move on to the next presenter, Miss Melanie Beklovich. Melanie, are you here? Melanie, could you turn your camera on, please, and your audio? Have you got your audio on, Melanie?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. You may proceed with your presentation as soon as you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. My name is Melanie Bekavich. I am co-owner of a company called Mystic Cannabis Company, an Indigenous-owned cannabis store, independently owned cannabis store located on Main and Jefferson in Winnipeg. We have two other operations located in northern Alberta, and I'm joining you from there today amidst all the wildfires up here, and we're all praying for rain. So first, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak today regarding Bill 10. I'd like to speak in favor of this bill as I believe that the abolition of the social responsibility fee will be positive for the industry as a whole. We opened our doors in Winnipeg in March of 2022, and when we applied for our license, there were fewer than 30 stores in the province. However, when we opened, a barrage of retail licenses had been issued and ballooned up to over 150 stores in Manitoba, and the number continues to grow. The SRF may have made sense when it was introduced and there were fewer licenses, each doing a significant amount of business, and there were unknown costs associated with cannabis legalization. But the government opened up licensing to any and all businesses. The market quickly changed, and the government policy on SRF has not kept up with the dynamics of the cannabis industry. Meanwhile, there has been entry of discount retailers, which is squeezing our margins. And I would posit that the SRF is impacting small business retailers the most, especially those of us who are just growing our businesses. As small business people, we likely all signed personal guarantees if you could access a loan or mortgage your home. And most of us, our homes are literally on the line. We are small and we do not have deep pockets of publicly traded companies, and we cannot sustain multi-year losses. Most new businesses are not profitable for the first 2 years, and profitability can sit between 5 and 12% thereafter. But that means the 6% SRF sets back small businesses, forcing small businesses into the red for the first couple of years. And I know that's what will happen to us. Manitoba is the only province in the country with a social responsibility fee and is working against the goal to eliminate the illicit market by propping up prices and making it incredibly difficult to compete with the illicit market. Today, we're staring down the barrel of a significant bill coming due on June 30th, which is the 2022 SRF fees. Those of us who are new to the industry in Manitoba will need to borrow if we can. When there are no loans available to cannabis, as has been mentioned, there are no loans available to cannabis small businesses. The SRF will also cause many stores to close, particularly small businesses. It has been communicated to us that unpaid SRF fees will be sent to collections, further impacting business credit ratings, personal credit ratings potentially, and our ability to borrow. As an industry, there are also big questions about the uses of the SRF, since we are all aware that only $1 million has been spent by the LGCA and has not been spent on social responsibility initiatives associated with cannabis legalization. I would propose on behalf of our business, Mystic Cannabis, that the SRF be repealed an additional year to January 1st, 2022, in order to avoid small business closures, stamp out the illicit market, and allow cannabis retailers to continue to invest in their businesses. Thank you.
We thank you for your presentation, Ms. Bekovich. We will now move on to questions. The Honorable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Bekovich, for joining us all the way from Alberta. I appreciate your time and your insight there in both Manitoba and Alberta. So thank you for your presentation tonight.
Ms. Bekovich, do you have a response for the minister?
Simply thank you.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you, Ms. Bekovich, for the presentation. Hoping for rain out your way and that you guys get some relief there from those fires. My question to you is you've requested that government consider making this repeal retroactive. And I guess the question I'd like to ask is, can you offer a sense of what that would mean to you and your business and how you understand that repeal back to January 1st, 2022 would impact other cannabis businesses in Manitoba?
Ms. Bekovich?
Certainly. I think most simply for a number of businesses, it would have them avoid closure, potentially. For ourselves, it would mean continuing to invest in our inventory, our staff, continuing to employ the number of staff that we have. Our options in terms of paying the SRF will be to borrow or from some means, or dip into our inventory, which will mean that we'll need to rebuild our business, and it will seriously disadvantage us.
Did you have any comment? Oh, sorry, Mr. Lamont.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. The one thing I was wondering, can you just talk a bit about the illicit market and the challenges around that? And is it sort of the new illicit market, I'll put it that way, sort of corner shops and so on?
Ms. Bekovich?
Sorry. The corner stores that have been spoken about this evening are a different classification of license. So they are licensed, something that we all do take some exception to as adult use stores and having made significant investments. But the illicit market that we contend with, where we see a significant price disadvantage, are dominantly online, where people can purchase, and they're not regulated. They're not subject to the same taxes, fees, requirements, facility requirements that our producers are required to meet, as well as ourselves.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Bekovich, and we will now move on to the next presenter. Thank you. I will now call on Mr. Ariel Glinter from the Joint Cannabis Shop. Mr. Glinter. Is Mr. Glinter here? Mr. Glinter, could you please turn your audio on, and you may proceed with your presentation when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Honorable Minister, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Ariel Glinter, and I am the Director of Business Development and Regulatory Compliance for the Joint Cannabis Shop. We operate approximately 15 licensed cannabis retail stores in both Manitoba and Saskatchewan, with 10 of those stores located in Manitoba. We both appreciate and support the steps that this government is taking to improve the cannabis industry for retailers in this province, including by repealing the SRF through the current legislation we are here today to discuss. That being said, we understand that the elimination of the SRF may involve changes to the way that excise taxes on cannabis products are charged and collected by the province. Currently, there is a lack of information as to the government's plans with respect to signing on to the federal government's cannabis excise tax program and what changes that might entail on the current pricing scheme that is in place in Manitoba through Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. Because of this lack of information, it is very difficult for retailers to plan for the future of our businesses when we are still waiting to determine what the final situation is going to be. We sincerely appreciate the government's efforts to make this industry financially healthier for all stakeholders involved, and we expect the government would agree that part of that requires providing predictability and transparency to all stakeholders regarding the fees and taxes that the government will be charging on the products that these stakeholders sell. Therefore, our main comment is that we would greatly appreciate any transparency or predictability that the government can provide while it implements these types of changes so that we may best prepare our business for the future. Any information that can be provided on these issues would be greatly appreciated and ideally would be disseminated concurrently with the planned changes to the SRF structure, which again, I would reiterate, we fully support. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Glinter. The Honourable Mr. Cullen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Glinter, for joining us tonight. Appreciate your insight in the marketplace here, both Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So thank you for that. I'll just make a comment. Obviously, having discussions with the federal government in terms of the excise tax, I understand they're looking at potential changes there. So we'll be continuing those discussions. Once we hear firmly from them, we'll certainly be in touch with the industry as well. So thanks for that comment, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Mr. Glinter, did you have any response to that?
Thank you very much for that comment, and we appreciate your efforts with the federal government on this issue. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you, Mr. Glinter, for the presentation. Tonight we've heard a lot about the ways in which things have been made very difficult for a lot of small businesses in Manitoba, specifically our cannabis sector. We're learning about the impacts of the SRF, oversaturation in the market. But relating to the excise tax, we know that the provincial government has been collecting that for some time, and that those dollars, I think it's 75 cents a gram, have been collected, and yet those are not being passed off to Ottawa, to my knowledge. My question to you is, have you ever had any clarity from the provincial government as to how those dollars are being used or transferred to the federal government, or are they simply being collected and kept by the provincial government?
Mr. Glinter?
Thank you for the question. My understanding is that the excise taxes collected by the province of Manitoba are kept by the province of Manitoba. As to where and how they are spent, I do not have any information on that.
Mr. Lamont's turn. Mr. Sala?
Thank you. And just a follow-up to that, does that concern you that as a small business that you guys have been paying an excise tax for which you have no idea where those dollars are going, or why they're being collected, or where they're being directed?
Mr. Glinter.
Thank you for the question. Certainly, we always, as I mentioned in my presentation, transparency, predictability makes everything for small businesses easier. In terms of where the money is spent, that also makes it far easier for us to justify to our own customers and to consumers as to why these amounts are being charged to begin with. I would say that excise taxes are separate from the SRF. With the SRF, we share the same concerns as to other retailers in respect of where those that money has been spent, and any information that the provincial government can give us with respect to how the provincial excise taxes are being spent would be greatly appreciated.
Are there any further questions? Mr. Sala.
Yeah, this isn't a question. It's just a comment to put a cap on what we've been saying here. I think what's coming together and what's quite clear is that this is a really difficult environment for cannabis retailers in this province. We're seeing SRF tax being applied. We're seeing an excise tax that's being collected and, to our knowledge, aren't being delivered to the federal government, or there's no arrangement there, and yet those dollars are still being collected. And we're hearing about the impacts of oversaturation and those changes to regulation. That's a real concern, and I think it's just important to highlight the ways in which this government has made it harder for small businesses in Manitoba. So I thank you for that opportunity to provide that comment.
Mr. Glinter?
Yes, thank you very much for that comment as well.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Glinter. We will now be moving on to our next presenter. Our next presenter on the list is Ms. Katie Torgerson. Katie Torgerson, if I'm pronouncing your name properly.
So far, so good.
You may proceed with your presentation when you are ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to speak. Thank you for your time tonight, both the people in front of me and behind me. I, amongst the other registered guests here today, comprising of cannabis store owners, managers, shareholders, and decision makers, are reaching out today with a plea for help. Small, independent, and large-size cannabis retailers and corporations make up 166 plus cannabis store locations in this province. While each one of these businesses will have highly varying annual gross sales from license to license, one issue, and arguably the biggest issue affecting the cannabis industry in Manitoba, is the provincially opted SRF. Now, this fee taxes retailers of all sizes, including Indigenous-owned businesses that should be tax exempt, 6% of their annual gross sales. Now, 6% does not sound like it would be a lot of money, but it has proven to be tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars per licensee. Looking at myself, we have 3 locations in Winnipeg. That's 3 SRF required for us to pay all in the same time frame each year. I can only imagine what this fee would look like for retailers with more than 3 licenses. I would like to highlight that due to the way this hidden tax is applied to retailers, the large-scale corporate retailers are paying less by means of the SRF remittance. As we all know, they are often charging far less for their products, less of a markup than us small guys are charging. Thus, we are contributing a higher SRF remittance. Given the fact that this fee is essentially a hidden tax, bear in mind that this is not a fee that we are able to add on to all of our customers' purchases, the same as other sectors are able or forced to apply PST. Instead, cannabis retailers are eating that cost instead of passing it on to the consumer when there are already very little profits for us to make. Something isn't sounding quite right here. An industry that generated a net income of $100.3 million in 2021-22 in Manitoba alone is lacking business profitability. Our provincial government is aiding the downfall of our stores that it allowed to open, that it licensed to open, by forcing outrageous and unjust fees to be paid while retailers are already generating minimal profits due to rising operating costs and rising taxation and fees. The SRF was intended to fund social responsibility programs related to the use of cannabis. While the intention behind this fee may have been noble, it is important to recognize that it is ultimately unfair and unnecessary. First and foremost, cannabis retailers are already subject to a number of taxes and fees, as we've already discussed tonight, including licensing fees, MBLL/LGCA wholesale product markups, and sales taxes. The addition of the social responsibility fee only serves to add an additional burden on legal cannabis businesses while aiding the illicit market. This has ultimately discouraged growth and success in numerous instances. Our government has allowed these stores to open and have set them up to fail by charging these fees by mandate, and have essentially left retailers out to figure it out ourselves while collecting these remittances without providing any meaningful accounting of how these dollars are being spent. Furthermore, there is very little to no evidence to suggest that the SRF is actually achieving its intended goal of funding social responsibility programs here in Manitoba. There is no clear accounting of how the mass revenue generated by this fee is being used, and there is no evidence to suggest that any of these programs are having a meaningful impact on reducing the alleged harms associated with cannabis use. This is not a burden that cannabis retailers should be forced to bear. The cannabis industry today is still in the developmental stages since legalization became to be in October 2018. However, we are living and trying to operate in 2023, now 5 years post-legalization and 2 years post-COVID pandemic, in a world where costs of everything are going up, the costs of cannabis consumer packaged goods are decreasing. Manitoba retailers specifically are in need of government assistance now or last year by repealing the SRF to January 2022. Without assistance or intervention, more licensees in Manitoba will be forced to close their doors due to rising operating costs, fees, and taxes incurred. We are seeing this happen far too often. The numbers as they relate to store count speak for themselves. It changes daily. Did you know that Manitoba is the only province currently with such excise tax model in place? Each other province and territory in Canada does not have to pay any sort of such fee, but are instead signed on to pay a federal excise tax instead, which is at the discretion of their provincial cannabis regulatory bodies to apply. This would be a far more supported model amongst cannabis retailers than the current SRF 6% gross revenue model. In light of these concerns that I have shared and my fellow colleagues have shared tonight, we urge you to take action to eliminate or reform the SRF fee. Doing so would send a clear message that the Manitoba government is committed to supporting the growth and success of your cannabis retailers, while also recognizing the need for evidence-based approaches to addressing the social and public health issues related to cannabis use. Thank you for your attention and your support with this matter.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Torgerson. We will now move on to questions. The Honorable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Torgerson, for your presentation tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Torgerson, did you have any response or just?
Just thank you.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Ms. Torgerson. Really appreciate it. And I'd just like to ask, could you share any reflections about how it makes you feel as somebody involved in this industry to know that you've been held to a certain standard for transparency and accountability, and yet the government isn't holding themselves to that same standard? Could you share any thoughts or reflections on that?
Ms. Torgerson.
Absolutely. It's something that we kind of like talk about all the time at our stores and like our management levels. The amount of reporting that we're required to do on a regular basis is astronomical. And the fact that we are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to our government by mandate in order to simply exist as a cannabis retailer. We can't be open if we don't pay this fee. So it's hard to say kind of what that feels like, because it just feels like such a big slap in the face. We're required to account for every single product that comes in and out of our store, but we aren't entitled to know where our hundreds of thousands of dollars is going. And if it's to support education, if it's to support safety, that's great. We support those things as well. This money very clearly isn't doing that if it's just sitting in some account somewhere.
Mr. Lamont.
Thank you very much. That was incredibly well put. I just wanted to ask, what are the challenges, or what are if this doesn't happen, what's going to be facing? I mean, that might be a very tough question, but what are you facing in terms of your three businesses?
Ms. Torgerson.
Don't really want to say this publicly, but if we can't pay our SRF fee, we are going to have to close our 3 stores' doors. Like we cannot afford the amount of money that is required of us and continue to operate our stores. We will have no product on the shelf. Staff will have to be laid off. Those are just some of the very real realities of what we're facing.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you very much for your presentation. We will now move on to the next presenter. I will now call on Tyrone Abbas. Is Tyrone Abbas available? Is he here or online possibly? Mr. Abbas will be dropped to the bottom of the list. Mr. Amin, private citizen. Is Mr. Amin here or online? Mr. Amin will be dropped to the bottom of the list. Our next presenter, Mr. R.J. Kuzmak, Fiddler's Green Cannabis Company. Mr. Kuzmak, you may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we can send some of this rain west. My name is, thanks again for having me so much. Really appreciate your time. My name is R.J. Kuzmak. I'm here representing Fiddler's Green Cannabis Company, located in the beautiful Exchange District. We are currently in the process of expansion, expanding into Point Douglas, which is a hotbed for black market cannabis sales. I'll touch on that point in a bit. Most of the people here speaking today are really speaking of the same points, and I applaud them. I 100% support them. That is, I just don't want to give the same speech. So what I'm going to do is look at it from a just slightly different angle. I come from 15 years of alcohol sales in the province of Manitoba, being with publicly traded alcohol companies to small independents. And the differences between the alcohol, culture, I'll call it, and versus cannabis culture are quite significantly different. My location is located directly next to the King's Head pub, if you've ever been. It turns pretty hot Friday nights, Saturday nights, gets pretty crazy around there. You can walk in from the pub into my cannabis store, and I will say, to say the least, that the vibe is different. With the two cultures, you can see it. And I encourage you to make that trip on a Friday night at 11 o'clock to see the culture difference, the cultural differences between those two markets. The reason I believe that alcohol should be brought into the conversation, or should definitely be brought into the conversation, is safety, responsibility. We do have a responsibility as retailers to educate, to identify our consumer, making sure that they're of the right age group. And we are all pioneers in this room. This alcohol is 150-something years old. The business model of alcohol in Canada, these rooms have been filled with conversations of alcohol for 150 years. And this is, one of the first in cannabis. So the amount of change that we can make with these conversations, I'm really excited for, especially to be at the ground level. Going back to, I myself, starting Fiddler's Green Cannabis, I built my own cottage. Because we can't borrow from the banks, we can't even have our own company credit card, believe it or not. A bank will not give you a company credit card to operate your store on. It's unbelievable. Everything that does, all sorts of business, every avenue of business in our store, in our stores, is done through cash. Not credit, not banks. And it's really hard. I'm taking money from my dinner table to buy inventory, for example. If we place an accessories order that's worth $8,000, it is literally coming from my personal debit card. There's a lot that needs to change, but back to the SRF. But between cannabis, tobacco, and alcohol, I truly believe that we are the social responsibility. We are social responsibility. Thank you, by the way, for that. We are the ones doing the education. In my opinion, the government should be paying us to hold these valuable conversations with our consumers about education, about what to stay away from on the market. And from the lack of programming that I've seen from the government through the amount of taxation that they have taken from us, and I do mean taxation, not fee. Fee, by definition, is a payment made to a professional person or a professional or public body in exchange for advice or services, and I haven't seen them. Pamphlets, the odd bus shelter poster that's immediately ripped down a month later, I'm sorry, it's just not cutting it. We are the ones holding the education. I support the January 1st, 2022 repeal of the SRF. And just to clarify on something else about the corner stores, I believe that there's two things that we're speaking of. There's a corner store, like we'll call it a bodega, in Point Douglas or the North End, that is just simply selling cannabis from under their till. Black market, it's $5 a gram. We can't sell cannabis that cheap. And if you do, you don't want it. The other corner store that we're referring to is a licensed store, like let's say a Shell store could become licensed if they follow the process. So there's two avenues there, just to not confuse things. So sorry, my phone keeps shutting down here. In the alcohol industry, back to safety and cannabis. In the alcohol industry, I've witnessed intoxicated driving, people losing their licenses, losing their bar fights, stabbings, gunshots, domestic abuse, people losing their jobs, death through drunk driving, loss of their driver's license, their business license, their medical license. loss of their homes, and the extreme toll that it takes on our medical system, which we've already touched base on. But that's my presentation, and I truly appreciate your time.
We thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Kuzmak. We will now move into questions. The Honorable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Kuzmak, for your presentation tonight. Appreciate your insight on the liquor market as well. That's certainly helpful, and hopefully your expansion goes well in your fight against the black market in Point Douglas.
Mr. Kuzmak?
Well, with your help, the black market could be subdued. And we have suggestions on our side and how we can make that happen if we can all come together in the same room and have those conversations. I think that's a very wise use of the money that has been wrongfully taken from us. Thank you for that.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Kuzmak. I just want to talk a bit about something you referenced, which is the question about corner stores, and so specifically those that are operating above board. And it strikes me, having learned a bit about this, that what's happened here is government has really created an uneven playing field in some way, and that you've got people like yourself who've been invested into their business, put their house on the line and so forth. And then there's those who've been able to enter the market and just have it be an additional product available under the counter. Can you talk about your feeling or your reflection as a retailer who's been forced to make those big investments and your response to that shifting of the sort of cannabis retail space
time
here in
has
Manitoba?
expired. Mr. Kuzmak.
Thanks for the question. There's a saying, if you can't beat them, might as well join them. My second location will be one of those licenses where I'm in a public space, and it is legal. And again, if you can't beat them, might as well join them. At this point, I'm paying myself $24,000 a year because of the SRF. And which is not a livable wage. We need to expand to become successful and put groceries on my table.
Mr. Lamont.
Thank you so much. One of the things I was interested in, because again, there's the difference between there's under the table illicit, but then let's call them licit, right? It's where people are selling it, like as you said, if it were shell. But that would be another massive disadvantage from the point of view that, like, you had to set up an entire store and everything else, but then you have somebody coming along and it's just another product on their shelf. So can you just talk a bit about the challenges around that and if you have any solutions, if any?
Mr. Kuzmak.
Thank you for your question. It's, if I was a gas station, it's an added form of revenue. If I sell tobacco in my cannabis store, for example. Not many cannabis stores do, but it's another form of revenue for us. Tobacco vapes as well is another form of revenue for our store. I would just, personally, I would hate to see cannabis culture becoming cigarette culture, where you go to Domo and ask for a pack of this and you drive off. I think that these beautiful boutiques that are small independent operators have built this amazing cannabis culture, or built upon this beautiful culture that we have. Can I ask a question to you as a group?
No, unfortunately. You may continue, Mr. Kuzmak.
Thank you. To a scenario in which, like something like that, how to fix it? Lots of conversation, getting the local businesses involved in those conversations, because again, I'm a proud Métis harvester, and I can't afford to go and harvest this fall. It's to the point where I just can't provide food for my family. I sold my cottage to create this boutique that we have. And then you have publicly traded cannabis stores undercutting everyone, selling things at cost because they're getting kickbacks from big suppliers. It's a whole nother can of worms, but that's what we're here to do, is open them, right? Yeah.
Mr. Sala, there is 35 seconds left, so you'll have to make it quick.
On that specific point about this concern about bigger players getting these kickbacks, any specific recommendations you'd have in the Manitoba market as to how we could respond to that concern?
Mr. Kuzmak.
I'll just thank you. Probably audits, heavy audits, especially on the big players. You probably pretty easy to find those sources of revenue coming into their bank accounts, things like that. Another way to fight it would be a standardized cannabis pricing model, just like alcohol. Doesn't matter where you're buying it from, whether it's Churchill, Selkirk, Brandon, Winnipeg, it's going to be the same product for the same price, and I think it levels the playing field.
Unfortunately, Mr. Kuzmak, your time has expired, so we thank you very much for your presentation, but we will move on to the next presenter.
Thanks for your time.
I will now call on Ms. Kim Rudd, High Tide Inc. Kim, am I pronouncing your last name proper? Is it Rudd or?
It's Rude, actually.
Rude, okay.
Thank you. Good evening, committee members.
Oh, Miss Rude, you may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, committee members, and thank you for having all of us here tonight. It's an important platform for us, for sure. My name is Kim Rude. As you heard, I'm a resident of Winnipeg, and I am the regional manager for Canna Cabana stores in both Manitoba and Saskatchewan. 10 stores in Manitoba, 10 stores in Saskatchewan. We are a subsidiary of High Tide Inc., which is owned and operated out of Calgary. We actually employ about 80 people here in Manitoba within our 10 stores. I'm here today to join the other Manitoba cannabis retailers to voice the support for Bill 10, the Liquor and Gaming and Cannabis Control Amendment Act that would see a social responsibility fee, SRF, repealed for cannabis retailers in Manitoba. In late 2022, High Tide and other cannabis retailers in Manitoba collaborated on a letter to Minister Smith, which, amongst other things, pointed out how the SRF impedes the ability of licensed cannabis retailers to effectively compete against the illicit market. The SRF adds an additional cost of doing business onto the shoulders of licensed retailers, which makes it more difficult for them to compete with the entrenched illicit market on price. Elimination of the illicit market, which does not pay tax, or the SRF, which was identified as a top priority of the federal government when they legalized cannabis in 2018. These taxes and fees make it more difficult for licensed cannabis retailers to both maintain profitable margins and remain price competitive in this illicit market. This creates an incentive for some consumers to stick with illicit market dispensaries or delivery services, unlike licensed retailers who do not check identification, who do sell untested products, unregulated products that do not come in age-protected packaging. This creates risk to both public safety and public health. In April 22, the Ontario Cannabis Store, a provincial crown corporation, published a study conducted by the National Research Council of Canada, done on behalf of the Ontario Police Department. After testing 22 illicit market cannabis edibles, the analysis showed that 19 out of 22 of those products contain multiple pesticides, and with concentrates hundreds of times above the established limits for Health Canada. The SRF drives retailer prices higher over other provinces by at least 6%, forcing consumers to obtain their cannabis from illicit market at lower prices. This price difference drives consumers to illicit channels where purchasing their products could be detrimental to their health and are often sourced from organized crime. I also want to point out that other provinces fund education and public health programs without collecting SRF from licensed retailers. To conclude, High Tide strongly supports repealing the SRF in Manitoba. 4 years after legislation, it's time to review some of the decisions that were made in 2018 and acknowledge that this fee places an undue burden on an industry facing significant challenges, as we've heard here today. Repealing the SRF would allow legal cannabis retailers to better compete in the illicit market in Manitoba and give consumer access to safe, tested, and regulated products. Moreover, legal cannabis retailers protect youth by restricting access, unlike the illicit market, which operates without safeguards of age verification. The government of Manitoba has shown that it has listened to the concerns of entrepreneurs and business owners in the province with this legislation. And we urge this committee to send this bill forward so that it may receive royal assent before the House rises in June. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Rood. The Honorable Cliff Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Rood, for your presentation. I appreciate your insight into the industry. Thanks again for taking time out of your schedule tonight.
Ms. Rood, did you have any comment in return?
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Ms. Rood. I know that you mentioned High Tide has locations in Calgary as well. And so what I'd ask is if you can offer some reflections on differences in regulation between Alberta and Manitoba, and any lessons we might be able to take here from your observations.
Well, there are many.
Ms. Rood, you may now proceed.
Thank you. There are many. I don't profess to know all the differences in the industry. My focus is operations here, but what I can tell you is that I feel like in my stores, often I don't get to hire enough people. We need more staff, as was mentioned before. There's stores that operate with one person. There's a safety issue. There's just the issue of being able to spend time and educate that customer, as we keep talking about. Educate them on the, not only benefits of the product, but how to use it responsibly. And if we don't have that extra time to spend with each consumer, it becomes more of a cashiering transaction as opposed to an educational experience.
Mr. Lamont?
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your presentation. I'm just, can you talk a bit about other folks have talked about it too, but the undercutting that's happening among, let me put it this way. Should there be a price floor?
Miss Rood?
That's a tough question because I think most of my peers here would say we are the lowest priced cannabis retailer. And I stand by that proudly. And the reason we can do that, as they've alluded to, is the fact that we are a large national corporation. It doesn't make managing our business any easier than it makes managing their business. To the point of one of the presenters, it just means we can sustain longer. It doesn't mean that it will be that we'll win the war, basically, right? So I think that what we really want to see is those funds come back into the business so that we can spend more on education for our bud tenders. There's a lot of platforms we could be utilizing out there that could give us great knowledge, and we'd love to see the government do more to support as well.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, Ms. Rood, we thank you very much for your presentation, and we will now move on to our next presenter. Would Mr. Stephen Stairs be here? Mr. Stairs, you may proceed with your presentation when you are ready.
I always love standing here. As indicated, my name's Stephen Stairs. I'm the only person in this room who actively fought for legalization, who blood, sweat, and tears before legalization, who is a medical marijuana patient, who's seen the great things that can come from cannabis. It has stopped the degradation of my vision loss, giving me more years to spend with my children, to see them graduate, to see them drive, and to just watch movies with. That's where I come from. I'm from the real cannabis community before legalization. These people are awesome people, but they don't understand what we went through before legalization. I've argued in this committee room 3 times. I've argued in the committee room at the end of the hall twice. I smoked weed in that one. Great time. The idea is I've argued on every bill regarding cannabis in this province. I'm not here from a retailer perspective. I'm not here from a producer perspective. I'm not even here from an ancillary business perspective. I'm here as a cannabis advocate. That's who I am. So if I could take a little bit of time, by the way, blind guy, no speeches, sorry. If I could take just a minute, maybe 2, and I'd like to educate you on cannabis. And maybe when I'm done, if you think I did a good job, you can throw some of that social responsibility fee my way, okay? I would like to give a little bit, a lot of talk has been talked about the problems facing the cannabis industry. Black market, taxes, labeling, advertising, all these things. But the big problem that they're dealing with is the illicit market. I mean, yes, the taxes are one, but once the SRF is gone, it's the black market. It's the window coverings. It's those things. But regarding black market, we have a big problem in this country. As I alluded to before, I'm a medical cannabis patient. I've been one since 2009, and I will continue to probably be one until I die. Hopefully that's a really long time from now. When 2001 came out, this is a little backstory for you. In 2001, when we got the Parker decision, which was a federal court decision in the Supreme Court that gave us medical cannabis, everything was fine. Medical cannabis, very, very taboo almost. It wasn't seen as a normal part of healthcare. Further down the road, 2014, the federal government allows us to keep our gardens for medical cannabis. Okay, so we've been federally protected now. That's great. The problem with that was when legalization came around, and especially in this province, because we don't have a home growing allow in this province, which again fosters the black market to thrive because they can provide cannabis at a low cost when these folks have to, again, taxes, regulation, licensing fees, insurance, banking. Yeah, these are all problems. But with that problem of medical cannabis coming around in 2014, it was federally protected. When legalization came out, everybody who couldn't get into this game, who didn't want to put the hard work, the blood, sweat, tears, the mortgages, all those people who didn't care about that industry and just wanted to make money, got medical cannabis licenses. And now they're selling black market cannabis to these people's competitors that they're trying to get from them. Do you know what I'm saying? These people need to be supported. Not tax revenues for a coffer that goes into we don't know where. By the way, I'm the one that filed the FIPA requests. I'm the one that's been hounding to find out where this money went, and I still want to know. Because you've taken millions of dollars from these people under the guise of educating the public, saving the community, stopping the sky from falling, but yet look at it. You've got people losing their homes almost. I don't understand. This province has failed. This province has failed with cannabis. I ran in the provincial election in 2016 for the Green Party because I didn't like the PC's approach to cannabis. I still don't. You have messed up cannabis, not only federally, we can blame the feds, cool, but I'm gonna blame the PC government right now for failing to protect an industry when you folks claim to be low taxes, small business orientated, and you screw over a new industry. Oh, that's some cold stuff right there. And you know what? Again, I'm unbiased. I'm none of these people. I shop at most of these people's stores if I can. Again, medical cannabis. I'm one of these people that doesn't be able to go to a medical cannabis store because we don't have one. So I have to get my supply usually from a retail store. Sometimes it costs me more. Sometimes I can't find what I want. But these people provide a service. They've already been talking about saving people's lives, bringing them out of cancer. And you want them to close? I just don't understand. I was listening to a interview from Heather Stephenson in 2017 when you guys brought out the Harm Prevention Act, Cannabis Harm Prevention Act. Ooh, sky is falling. We got to save children. That's where this came from. And you know what she said then? When the medical cannabis question was posed to her by a CBC reporter, hey, were medical cannabis patients consulted regarding this? Driving, consumption, all those things? She stumbled. She paused. And, no. So this is a continuation. We're still under the same government when Palliser asked the feds to postpone legalization because you guys weren't ready. You wanted some more time. Well, I'll tell you this, you've taken too much time figuring out what was going on with these people because now they're having to complain, take time out of their day, out of their staff, out of their employees, and they're here arguing with you guys because you won't support them. We held a rally in front of this building. I'm great at throwing rallies, by the way. I don't understand why. You know that it doesn't cost, you're not collecting this thing for a reason. You've admitted it. So why can't you give them amnesty? That's it. Why can't you give them amnesty? Because they deserve it. Because these people want supportive government, and they don't have it. And I tell you this, if you don't support them this year, this election will be very different. I'm done.
We thank you for your presentation, Mr. Stairs. We will now move into questions. The Honourable Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Stairs, for your presentation tonight. Certainly appreciate your advocacy on behalf of the industry and certainly wish you all the best in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Sala.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Stairs. I just want to offer you a chance to talk a bit about the work of the Cannabis Business Association of Manitoba. I know you're listed as representing that organization. Anything you want to share about the work that you're doing and just help us understand a bit about your role in the industry in Manitoba?
Mr. Stairs, you must wait till I recognize you. Thank you. Mr. Stairs.
I talk a lot, I'm sorry. During the pandemic, I got a phone call, actually from Mr. Glinter, who presented earlier. And he told me that there was a QS4 security officer in his store doing provincial COVID checks, making sure stores weren't selling anything that wasn't essential, all that kind of stuff. They came in, they told them that they couldn't sell any cannabis accessories, just cannabis. And as a medical cannabis patient, again, that's a violation of my constitutional rights because I need access to devices, to ways to consume cannabis, right? So when I walked into a store, and he actually called me, which is kind of ironic, I was flabbergasted. That's a great word. I was very shocked. And after that phone call, I called my connection, one of my friends at LGCA. I explained the situation to them. I explained this is wrong, and this needs to be fixed. And within a few hours, they had a letter from MBLL, LGCA, and QS4 Security apologizing, and they were allowed to sell cannabis accessories again. That took 6 hours, maybe. And that was the reason why I started the Cannabis Business Association. Because with the connections that I've made over a decade and a half of advocating for cannabis in this province, I knew who to call. And that's the reason why I started it, because I figured, in 2013, Jeremy Lowen from Hemp Haven was arrested for selling a Superman bong and a Spider-Man bong. Stupid reasons the police arrested him. The idea is they arrested him because they wanted to bother him. One of the press conferences we had, he wanted to start a trade association. Well, years later, I finally started one. And that's why we're here. Because sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, we disagree with some of the independent stores. We disagree sometimes with the bigger stores. But the thing is, we advocate for cannabis, not for specific retailers, not for specific tax purposes or producers or anything like that. For cannabis. That's it.
Mr. Lamont.
Thank you very much. I was just wondering, can you expand a bit on, you were talking about, because I've heard complaints from folks talking about the misuse of medical licenses. So if you can just talk a bit about that, that'd be great.
Mr. Stairs.
Thank you. The city of Winnipeg banned designated production of medical cannabis last September. That was due to complaints from residential neighborhoods, citizens, etc., that were complaining about smells. Smells from overused cannabis licenses, multiple licenses in one location, growing in homes that aren't used for living, but for cannabis production. Those people operate under a guise of medical guise because they have a license from a doctor, generally a doctor that they paid to give them a license. So there's a whole clinic thing there that we need to look at as well. But when they get that federal protection, if the neighbor calls, if I'm growing illegally and the neighbor calls on me, hey, police, I think the guy's growing illegally. The police say, okay, what's the address? Okay, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, we'll check our file. Oh, medical. That's it. And they can't tell that person it's medical because that's a violation of their privacy. So all they can do is just not do anything about it. And the reason they banned designated production in the city was because of that reason. And I'm afraid they're going to come after personal production licenses, which is the next one, which is what I fall under. And if they do, there's going to be another constitutional challenge going on in this province. Problem.
Are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, we thank you for your presentation tonight, Mr. Stairs, and we will now move on to the next presenter. We will now call the presenters that were dropped to the bottom of the list. Ms. Candace Belmore. Is Candace Belmore available? Ms. Candace Belmore is not available. She will be dropped from the list. Our next presenter is Tyrone Abbas. Is Tyrone Abbas available? No. Tyrone Abbas will now be dropped from the list. Mr. Amin. Is Mr. Amin available? No. Mr. Amin is not available. He will be dropped from the list. That concludes the list of presenters I have before me. We will now proceed with clause by clause of Bill number 10. Does the minister responsible for Bill number 10 have an opening statement? The Honourable Mr. Cullen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And off the top, again, I want to thank each one of the presenters that came out tonight to present, as well as those that joined us by video, and also those that submitted written submissions. Thank you for your time. We do appreciate hearing feedback on this important industry in Manitoba. And it is an evolving industry, as you all know. And clearly, hopefully we as government can learn as we go. Obviously, we need to take advice from you, I would view as the experts in the field. So I value the submissions you provided tonight, and we'll take certainly those under advisement. I will say when, a few years ago when the federal government decided they were going to get into this retail of cannabis, we had decisions to make as a government in terms of how we would market the product. And we made the conscious decision to market and retail the product through the private sector. And I think there's tremendous opportunity for the private sector. And I would just leave it with you that other governments and other governments with different philosophies have chosen different avenues to retail cannabis. We think the private sector is the way to retail cannabis to Manitobans. We certainly look forward to maintaining that private sector delivery of cannabis. And I just leave it with you that other governments may not be so friendly to the private sector retailing of cannabis or other commodities for that matter. So I think we're in a point here we can reduce or eliminate the social responsibility fee. I certainly will take the words that you provided us tonight to heart. Clearly there was themes demonstrated tonight, so I will be having further consultations on that respect. And clearly I think, and it was pointed out a few times tonight as well, I think we do have a lot of work to do in terms of combating the illicit market, the black market, and I think we can seek some advice from you too in terms of how we deal with that. So I think there's more work to do on that front, and I would say our government's prepared to work with you to try to make sure that you're capturing more of the market share, and we do whatever we can to eliminate the black market and some of the issues, negative issues around those other products. So with that, Mr. Chair, again, I thank everyone for their input tonight.
We thank the minister for those comments. Does the critic from the official opposition have an opening statement? Mr. Sala.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start just by thanking all the presenters who came out tonight to take advantage of this unique opportunity we have in Manitoba to have people speak to bills. It's wonderful to see people stepping up and using this opportunity to share those concerns that they have about the impacts of the SRF bill on your businesses. And it really has been an enlightening and compelling evening, and very, very grateful for what we were able to learn tonight from presenters who took the time to come out. One thing I think it's important to say right off the top unequivocally, and the minister alluded to that, to this, was that this idea that somehow if there's a government change, that there would be some kind of an alteration or a modification of the existing regulatory environment. And I just want to state unequivocally that there would be absolutely no changes to that environment. So we know that the government will seek to create concern around that. We'll feed that, but just to be totally clear, there will be no changes of any kind to the regulatory market. So folks in this room, as representatives of this industry, can have that confidence and know that should we have that opportunity to serve, that there would be no concerns there of any kind. I just broadly speaking to the SRF, I think it's clear that if we go back and we think about this being a new industry, there was, of course, a lack of clarity over what kind of investments would need to be made in social responsibility. And it was reasonable to bring in a bill of this type originally with that lack of clarity to potentially ensure that there were funds, if needed, there to help make our cannabis sector, to help make cannabis consumption in Manitoba as safe as possible. But what's also clear is that over the last 3 years, there has been, first of all, a complete lack of transparency around the way that those funds have been spent. But what has become clear now is that those funds were largely unspent, and that this tax has been applied to small businesses for way too long in Manitoba. And I have to say, if I was a cannabis retailer in this province, I'd probably be showing a lot more frustration than some of you showed tonight. And I have to say, I'm amazed at the degree of restraint that some of you showed tonight, given the risks to your business, given the risks to your family, and given the challenges that have been created. So we've seen, for 3 years, millions and millions of dollars that were collected that weren't going towards the purpose that they were supposed to. So I really just want to say how much we empathize as the opposition with your frustration with how long this has taken. I think one thing that was identified tonight that really struck me was that not only has these funds not been used to improve safety or responsibility in Manitoba, but some of you alluded to the fact that, in fact, the collection of the SRF has taken us backwards because you were not able to provide support staffing in your stores that would allow Manitobans to consume cannabis as safely as possible. I think that was a really important point that was made tonight. So in fact, the SRF has negatively impacted the safety and the responsibility or the ability for Manitobans to consume cannabis safely. So, not only has the SRF prevented or helped in some ways acted detrimentally to the safety of cannabis consumption, but we also heard tonight loud and clear the ways in which this SRF fee has prevented the growth and expansion of small businesses in Manitoba. And I just want to dwell on that for a second to highlight, we've got a government in Manitoba that likes to position itself as being a champion of small businesses. And I think tonight we really heard from so many people as to why that's fundamentally not true and why we can't accept that to be true. So I thank everyone here tonight for helping to really clarify that and make a powerful point in regards to that. So very enlightening night. We obtain a really clear picture, I think, not only relating to the SRF, but the state of cannabis sales and the cannabis sector in Manitoba and the ways in which this government has made life a lot harder, not only relating to the SRF, but we heard a lot of concerns about an incoherent regulatory environment with overexpansion in ways that I think, from what we heard tonight, have been shocking to those people who made early investments in cannabis retailing outlets in this province. We've heard about the failure to adequately respond to the black market. Earlier, the minister suggested to one of the presenters that it was their responsibility to respond to the black market. In fact, it's the government's responsibility, and they have clearly not done their job and by extension have made your lives harder. We've heard concerns about the impact of excise taxes, which have been collected for years, and I can tell you as a legislator with responsibility in this area, I have no idea where those funds are being kept or for what purpose they've been collected, given that they're not being redistributed to the federal government. Again, another thing that's made their lives harder. And then lastly, these regulatory changes that have given some businesses quite a leg up, those that have chosen to get into cannabis sales that haven't been forced to make some of those investments that others have been made. So not a level playing field. So a lot of concerns overall about how this government has managed cannabis sales in this province. And that's saying nothing about the lack of transparency that we've seen from them over many years. So I applaud all those in this room who fought for that transparency. And I do want to say that our opposition caucus has fought for transparency. We have demanded answers for where those funds were going, and we did not get those answers. I do want to say we have fought that fight and have done our best to get those answers, and it is encouraging that we are where we're at now, but it's been a long road, I know, for many. So with that, I do want to say it is important that we do move forward with repealing the SRF. I want to thank everyone again that came out tonight. I do want to thank my colleague Lisa Naylor for all her work in connecting with folks in the cannabis industry and helping to advocate for them as well. With that, I'll close my comments.
We thank the member for those comments. During the consideration of a bill, the enacting clause and title are postponed until all other clauses have been considered in their proper order. Shall Clause 1 pass? Clause 1 is accordingly passed. Shall Clause 2 pass? Clause 2 is accordingly passed. Shall Clause 3 pass? Clause 3 is accordingly passed. Shall Clause 4 pass? Clause 4 is accordingly passed. Shall Clause 5 pass? Clause 5 is accordingly passed. Shall the enacting clause pass? The enacting clause is accordingly passed. Shall the title pass? The title is accordingly passed. Shall the bill be reported? Agreed. The bill shall be reported. The hour being 8:25, what is the will of the committee? Committee rise.